Good evening, and welcome to the fourth round of Formula 3 League, live and exclusive here on iRacing UK Twitch and YouTube channels, brought to you via iRacing, the world's premier motorsport simulator. Who are iRacing UK? We're a community of enthusiastic and inclusive racers from across the UK who like to run social races, practice sessions, leagues, but most importantly, share our experiences and our passion for sim racing. I am Nick Allen, and tonight I am joined with cameraman slash commentator Chris, who will be bringing you all the angles, not to mention a flair of his own experience and perspective on the racing that we'll be able to witness tonight. Now, where are we this evening, I hear you ask? Well, I'll give you a few clues. First of all, it's the home of Clogs and Max Verstappen. That's right, we're in Holland for a virtual visit to Zandvoort. So, located in the sand dunes of a nearby popular seaside town resort, the Circuit Zandvoort has hosted the Grand Prix of the Dutch Grand Prix between the years of 1948 and 1945 and makes a welcome return to the Formula One calendar in 2021. Now, I can't think of a better way to get ourselves in the spirit for a real-life race here later in the year, Chris. Welcome back from your jolly holidays. I'm sure you're looking forward to getting stuck back into the action this evening. What are we looking out for?
Yes, good evening, Nick, and good evening, everyone. We've got a very spicy race in store for us this evening. There's quite a few things worth noting. So, first of all, is anyone going to be able to challenge Sam Hermer in this race? I mean, if you look at the timing tower right now, he's got a good nearly 4 tenths in qualifying to the next guy, and that's Matt Laubscher currently. So, currently, it's not looking like anyone can challenge Sam. This is going to be a different race compared to Spa 2 weeks ago, in that they had a week of officials before that race, whereas this time out, this is the first day of official races for iRacing at Zandvoort. So there's been far less practice sessions available for everyone, which I think in combination with the nature of this track, we're going to see a lot more carnage on lap 1 and 2 especially. And there's a few corners on this track. I'm thinking of the long right-hander that is, I believe, called Schijfvlak. Apologies, any Dutch listeners, for my pronunciation tonight. That is flat out on warm tyres, but it is very much not flat out on the cold tyres, and especially in qualifying where they're pushing and pushing and pushing. I'm surprised we've not actually seen anyone really damage the car there. When we were watching practice earlier, just as a warm-up, and Matt Laubscher in particular really maximising the track, and there is so much that can go wrong over a lap here, and they've got, I believe it's going to be a half-hour race, so there's plenty of time for something to go wrong, and I think the way it's going, that looks like how Sam Hermer might potentially lose this, his driver error, if someone can challenge him the way, for example, Jerome Lamy was last time out.
So pressure is the name of the game. You heard it there from Chris. We're going to see Sam Hermer under a lot of pressure at the front from the likes of Lucia, Petty, Lamy and Wilson. All the top 5 there looking incredibly racy this evening. Putting that pressure on could be the difference between seeing Sam take the victory or take the gravel traps. Now, as Chris mentioned, we've got a section of corners at the start of the circuit. Tarzan Bocht, Gelaert Bocht, and Hugenholz Bocht. That's anything that ends with Bocht means bend, viewers, just in case you were wondering. And those kind of first 3 or 4 corners that we're going to be watching the drivers go through this evening are where we're going to see a lot of the overtaking kind of action, I think, and where we're going to see people really pushing it hard, seeing if they can get themselves up the order before they hit that long straight. Well, we can't really call it much of a straight, as we just have a little look here on board currently with we're with Jerome Lamy at the moment, and this is the not so straight that I was talking about here, and then a long downhill right-hander here. A lot of precision required from these guys to try and keep it on the ideal racing line, and the middle section of this track gets incredibly tight at points, with these guys really having to use all of their skill to try and make sure they keep it on the tarmac. As you said, Chris, I think we're going to see some great action here. Spa, obviously, as you mentioned, in the officials, but not only that, probably a more loved and raced circuit anyway, just for its heritage and obviously its prevalence in special events such as the Spa 24 that we had just a couple of weeks ago. Now, as we look at the timing tower, Sam, Gavin, Matt Lucia, Jerome and Lee Aberdeen at the moment. Josh Wilson's just been displaced by Lee Aberdeen from 5th down to 6th. We've seen some strong performances from Lee throughout the season, and in also some other leagues as well, such as the Radicals, where we've seen Lee have some fantastic performances, but currently down 7/10 on the leader at the moment, not able to get his way up into the 128, still sitting there in the 129. So we'll see what Lee can do throughout this race. As we mentioned, the pressure and the kind of overtaking that you're going to see at Zandvoort may be a bit different to Spa, with it being a little bit tighter at points, but then also incredibly windy throughout, meaning that the drivers don't really have much of a point during this circuit where they can relax, apart from that pit straight, where we'll see maybe a couple of drafting manoeuvres attempted down there. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is, with the amount of fighting that we're going to see, hopefully, from these competitive top sort of 4 or 5 runners, that could mean that we see a real shuffle up in the order, and a little accident could mean a difference for people like Stuart Mill and Alex Hopkins and Jack Ralph, who currently sit in 9th, 10th and 11th. But if you imagine a situation where all these fast guys at the front, Chris, get really involved and end up making contact, that really opens the door for guys further down the field.
It really does, and obviously qualifying is crucial in any race, but I think tonight especially it's going to be super crucial, because look how tight that midfield pack is from, let's say Duncan Roberts, who are currently with in 8th. There is 0.6 of a second separating him and then following 9 drivers. That is not much at all on a 90-second lap. So we're going to see, I think, some very interesting racing from everyone tonight, as we, I believe, are just waiting for the last few drivers to do their laps. Because where it's an open qualifying, once that timer goes 0, it's not like an iRacing official where you're done. You are actually allowed to finish your last lap. So it really depends on who. I think at the moment Sean Barnett's our furthest back on the circuit. So he gets a bit of airtime for this. Oh, nice power slide from Sean there. Not going to be great for his lap time. So doubt he'll improve from 23rd. He's quite out of position there, I would say. And on that front, we have actually got a couple of new drivers tonight. Andrew Morris, who hasn't qualified. So he'll be starting in 29th. And Patrick Rowlands, no relation to myself, he is in 22nd. Not sure how much he drives the F3, but I believe he's a pretty quick driver in the stuff he does drive. So it will be interesting to see if he can push through the pack. Another couple of guys like Rudy Moret in 21st, Nathan Willoughby in 20th, and Reece Saunders in 18th. Those are all drivers you'd expect to be able to charge through the field. And I believe with Sean coming round here, that will hopefully give us a grid that we can now look at in a few seconds.
Absolutely, we should have. We've got, I think Sean Barnett was just finishing a lap still at the moment, just looking at the timing tower, although that might be inaccurate, just checking the screens. Now, as we mentioned, they've had an open qualifying session this evening. They had a driver's briefing between 10 to 8 and 8 p.m. Then following that, there was a 55-minute open practice session for the drivers, in which they were able to get their eye in on the circuit. Hopefully they've been practicing a little bit as well earlier in the week, maybe to get those lines sorted. And then we're going to have the race beginning at 9:10, running for as long as it needs to run. Here's your order, with Sam Hermer at the front of the grid, followed by Gavin Petty. And then in 3rd place, we've got Matt Lubscher, followed by Scott Tuffy in 4th. He brings up the 2nd row. Then we've got Jerome Lamy and Lee Aberdeen on the 3rd row in 5th and 6th. And then Chris Foskett, Josh Wilson, Stuart Milne, Duncan Roberts, Alex Hopkins, and Jack Ralph in 12th, following Ralph in 12th, and then Carl Cranswick, a familiar face in the Formula 3. But I'm sure we'll see the gold livery of Carl around in 13th. Then there's Mitchell Webb, followed by James Cockram, Jeff Randall, Dare Flock, Reece Saunders, Ryan Annals, Nathan Willoughby, Rudy Murray, Patrick Rowlands, Sean Barnett, and then finally David Hatton. Oh, not finally. We've also got Leslie Griffin, Edmund Webb, Graham Nicol, Colin Nicol, and Andrew P. Morris. So 30 drivers, or 29 drivers on the grid. We're just waiting for the rest of them to get take their grid spots at the moment. The temperatures at the moment, 35 degrees C. The track itself, 4.25 kilometers, so about a minute and a half lap for most of these drivers. As Chris said earlier, we expect to see probably around half an hour of racing on the 21 laps that we're going to see around Zandvoort this evening. I'm just waiting now for the final few to head to the grid, with Josh Wilson, Duncan Roberts, and James Cockram, I think, are the last few, and David Hatton as well. all the guys getting read up and ready to go. There's a fast repair available for all of our drivers this evening, so if any wheels go errant, off into the barriers, they'll be able to get those replaced, and it's 100% fuel with no requirement for a pit stop. And here we go now with the lights ready to go on the fourth round of Formula 3. That's 5 green lights out, and away we go now with all of the drivers getting away well at the moment, pulling out into the middle. We've got 3 wide of the few places now, and it looks like everyone's clean at the moment with no action to speak of. And there was some great starts there from our front runners, looking like Sam Hermer having a fantastic start there with a load of our guys going 2 by 2 into the first corner. They've managed to keep it clean so far. I've seen no tyre smoke, no bits of carbon fibre going flying so far, and Gavin Petty's under extreme pressure here from Matt Lubscher and Scott Tuffney behind. This is going to be an incredible fight at the front of the pack, with even the likes of Jerome Lamy looking to get involved and keep himself in contention for a place there. There we go. We look at Lee Aberdeen now, who's really going to be under pressure from Josh Wilson behind him. Josh in the blue and yellow car that you'll be able to see the Swedish colours. He's staying very close. Oh, we've got one car off. That looks like it's going to be Gavin Petty. Our P2 runner's gone off the track. That's Gavin Petty falling down the order after not being with us in the previous round. That's a lot of points that he's not going to want to lose in this round. He's already down in the points in the table at the moment. And as we see Sam Hermer maintaining his lead at the minute with Matt Lubscher in 3rd position. We go on with Matt now, just having a little look at car 21. What can he do with Scott Tuffy, who's managed to get himself up 2 places so far in this round? That's a great performance from Scott, who we didn't really see featuring very much on the qualifying times until the last section of this evening. And he's going to be the one now that has to go and make the chase and see if he can make his way up to the back of Sam Hermer. And here is Lee Aberdeen still trying to put the pressure on. It looks like he's just grown that gap a little bit from Wilson, but if he's going to be trying to have a fight here with Jerome Lamy, he's potentially going to lose a little bit of time, which is going to keep Wilson in contention. There he goes out to the right hand side of Lamy, and he's made it happen. Lamy almost let it happen there. He's just kind of let Lee Aberdeen cruise past into the first corner, thinking, no, I'll take that back at a later part of the race, thank you very much. You can no damage, thank you, no incidents for me. And there's Chris Foskett at the minute up the inside of Alex Hopkins there. That's a great move from Chris Foskett, and managing to keep himself in P6. Then, and Alex Foskett, I think that was Alex Foskett, they managed to lose it possibly on his defensive manoeuvre there from Chris, and that is going to be unfortunate for him, dropping down the order. Alex now dropping right down the positions, unfortunately. There's Carl Cranswick in P10. He's made his way up 3 places, I believe, at the moment, looking a bit stronger than he was off the start. And Stuart Milne also fighting for position there with Carl Cranswick, and a lot of cars here going nose to tail through these early laps in Zandvoort, and some excellent action so far from all these guys. Stuart Milne, now we're expecting Stuart to be quick. We've seen him put in some fantastic laps in the past, and he's going to be under pressure from Carl next if he doesn't get a move on. James Cockram has made his way up to 7th. Chris Foskett in 6th at the moment, with Josh Wilson in 5th. Now we're going to go over to James Cockram, looking like he's on his own a little bit. He has got some people behind him, but not really giving him the kind of pressure that he really needs at all at the minute. So he's just cruising through these laps, and I think behind it looks like Carl Cranswick, he's got the move done on Stuart Milne up the inside into the last corner, but he is going to be under threat from all of the slipstream. That was Stuart Milne going into the pits there, Chris. I'm not sure if he's got a penalty possibly or a bit of damage. Maybe we'll have to go back to that in a minute, but that's given Carl Cranswick...
I think there was a bit of damage on him from an earlier incident, because the ease with which James Cockram, who is an excellent driver and excellent overtaker, but you're not getting past Stuart Milne as easily as he did, even with his talent. As we see Carl lock up there under surprisingly little pressure, so he's finally got a bit of breathing space, and there's all the action behind him, as we see about 6 drivers here coming through. This is the longest longest flat out zone, but the corner it comes out to is the one we were talking about earlier, that is flat out with warm tyres, or at least it was when I last drove it in the F3. Of course, the car has changed since then, so it might not do. But I thought it'd be worth going back to some of the first lap incidents that we had. So Duncan Roberts we've lost already. So we'll see what happened here as we're coming round. I believe this is into the hairpin. And just a tiny bit of possibly netco contact, and that car is done. And that looks like that's what happened to Rhys Saunders as well. He was caught up in that incident too, unfortunately. And then the other one we had was Gavin Petty going off track. So let's see if we can see what happened to him there.
Ran out of talent.
Yeah.
On the early lap. That is a shame for Gavin Petty. He's been consistently one of the stronger drivers that we've seen throughout the Formula 3, not only in this season, but also the last. So brilliant stuff, though, so far. And thanks for taking us through those replays, Chris. That was a great reminder of what we've seen so far. It's worth mentioning that Sam Hermer, our front runner, has currently grown a 2.7 second gap to Tuffy in P2, meaning that he is now well clear of the pack and will be looking to just try and make his advance for a nice clean victory. Behind them, though, we've got Lee Aberdeen and Matt Lubscher fighting it out. We must have missed Lee Aberdeen make a couple of extra places, because I'm sure he wasn't in P3 before, but look at him go. He's being chased down hard by Lubscher, but he's driving an incredibly clean race at the moment, and we might even be able to see him get up to the back of Tuffy yet, because there's only, I think, about 0.8 between those guys. So as long as Matt Lubscher doesn't give him too much trouble and he has to put in a starch defence, he might actually be able to catch up to P2 and put in a bit of a fight there for that second place spot on the podium. Now, further down the order, we've got a few more people to look out for. Carl Cranswick's made his way up to 9th position from 10th earlier on. Jack Ralph's back in 12th, and he's going to be chased by Nathan Willoughby at the moment. Nathan has made his way up a couple of places, I believe, in the order, but not quite enough to make himself into the top 10 at the moment. Jack Ralph not really under too much pressure from Nathan behind. There's a bit of a gap there at the moment. He'll be thinking about his next move, which is going to be on Mitchell Webb. Now, Carl Cranswick's just dropped down the order. Carl Cranswick, I believe, just spun that car. I think he's just gone for the toe to make sure that he wasn't in the way. Let's just get a replay of that. And he's gone into the final corner there, has he? And just hit the gravel trap on the outside and spun it around completely. The back wheel of that Formula 3 bouncing all over the place as he spins around. That's a shame for Carl, who had made his way up about 4 places off the starting grid. Oh, and here's Jack Ralph under a lot of trouble. And we've got contact between Jack Ralph and Nathan Willoughby. Nathan's ended up off the track, and now Nathan's going to end up with Sam Barnett, I believe that was. He's been caught up in some damage there. Sam Barnett, number 28, I believe, that's also been taken out by Nathan, who unfortunately really couldn't get the car slowed down much more. Let's see what happened here. Was there possibly a bit of net code or a bit of contact here? Oh no, I think there was definitely there was room there, wasn't there? And then, oh yeah, that's a shame for all involved there. Nathan just managing not quite to get it out the way. That grass being incredibly slippy, and when you hit it in one of these cars on iRacing, you often find yourself in a position where you're not very much in control of where that car goes.
Yeah, that right-hander is a very tricky corner, actually. It's certainly not one that I'd want to be making an overtaking move into, which is frustrating for the drivers, because a hairpin straight after is normally a good place to go for it. As you saw there, the car just naturally understeers out wide, and that's where the contact came from there. It's very unfortunate, but it's just the nature of that track. And it's difficult to know who to keep an eye on at the moment, because there's battles throughout the field here. So we've got I think a 4-car battle between Ralph, Petty, Rowlands and Moret.
Yeah, we'll go over to that now. So we're looking at Petty, Rowlands, and Moret. This is 15th, 16th, and 17th that we're looking at the moment. Rudy Moret in 17th. Car number 27 on your screens. Keep an eye on him. We know that Rudy's quick. We've seen him in previous races, and he's going to be trying to give Patrick Rowlands, your namesake, a good run for his money here. Let's see what Rudy can do on Patrick. He's got a good run here on him, looking to chase hard, but not quite the gap to make a move here. I don't think this is going to be anywhere near. Oh, a bit of a lock up there from Patrick ahead. Let's see if he's able to put up any kind of defense here against Rudy as they now head into that long flat out section. As you said, Chris, now a bit of a slipstream, I imagine, will be available here to these guys. Let's see, and he's going to go up the inside here. That's a very brave move from Rudy. Not quite brave enough though, and Rowlands manages to just hold on to it on the outside, and now he's managed to maintain that gap, and he's going to be safe for another couple of bends, hopefully. Patrick on his debut appearance here in the Formula 3 League on Season 2, and we welcome him very much. And Rudy looking for a move on the inside there. Patrick still having to defend hard on the outside. They're going to go wheel to wheel, possibly. No, Rudy just backing off a little bit, allowing Patrick to continue his charge in P15 at the moment, but we're not sure it's going to last for much longer as they come into the final section of the circuit now. Let's see what Rudy will be able to do here. They've got David Hatton behind them now and Stuart Milne. So Stuart Milne, obviously having had lost a bit of time throughout this race, an earlier incident from Stuart Milne, unfortunately. He'll be looking to try and grab a few places back after picking up a bit of damage earlier on, and that's back into the pits, I think, for Stuart Milne. Milne that was actually, again possibly. So we'll have to maybe have another look at that in a bit and see what happened to him. But we're going to go up to Edmund Webb here. So Edmund, now running in P11, he's managed to make up a few places in this race. Derfock is ahead, but nowhere near at the moment in terms of timing. So it's going to be Jeff Randall behind that Edmund's going to be looking out for, with Jeff looking to make up another position and see if he can get himself ahead of the Webb.
Yeah, we just saw an incident back there behind that, which I think was Andrew Morris, who was the other driver who'd made quite a few places up, who just lost it on the exit of the hairpin there. This is a surprisingly low grip surface track. I mean, that whole last section where we saw the potential move on Rowland's last lap, you have no grip there, and there's not much the car behind could do there, unfortunately. Are they able to get going again? Just about no one else got involved in that, so that's good to see from the remaining drivers. But it's it's a very difficult track to do, and you don't really know where the grip is, even once your tyres are up to speed. This whole track really, it's an absolute massive challenge. Again, as I say every week, quite happy to be up in the commentary booth where I don't have to worry about sliding off the track.
From one Webb to another, here we are with Mitchell in car number 23. He's under chase from that Golf McLaren livery, car number 5 behind of their flock. Now into turn 1, Tarzan Bocht swinging in like Tarzan himself. They go and seeing if Edmund will see if they will be able to make up any time as they enter the long straight section. We've seen people giving it a go, haven't we, under the slipstream, but not quite being able to make it happen into that turn 7 of Schweilach. Now here we go, not really close enough behind at the moment is Derfock. Mitchell Webb continuing to keep that gap at a reasonable kind of distance where he can feel a little bit safe maybe, but not rest on his laurels. And actually just looking there, they're getting incredibly close, aren't they, really, through certain sections of this track where there just seems to be able to eat that gap down a little bit and make Mitchell just under pressure, maybe a couple of little mistakes here, not quite hitting the apex in the same way that there is at points, which allows him to close that gap up ever so much. 4/10 at the moment. See what he's going to be able to do as they enter the final sections of the second. Oh, a lot of curb he took there. That's going to cost him possibly a little bit on that. He's gone down by a couple of hundredths there. He's lost. So we're going to go over to James Cockram now. We've got a replay here of James. What happened here, Chris?
Hey, he's just overtaken Chris Foskett there, which is now for 7th, which is the 8th position James Cockram's made up. And there I was saying this whole section of the circuit is low grip, and James has managed to make the overtake work, coming out that really tight left-hander. There's a couple of lines available there, and it looks like James had used the outside line there, which just allows you to get onto the power just that little bit quicker. So James using his experience there. The L plates on his car, I wouldn't say... that's a crabby car there. Let's hope they don't get in the way. Is that Josh Wilson? Yeah.
That was car number 19. Yeah, Josh Wilson. That looks like he's gone off and he's towed it. What's happened to Josh Wilson here? Oh, spun it there and just picked up a bit of barrier, and that's completely knackered the front of that Formula 3. Look at the crabbing on that. You pick some of those up in Chroma.
Yeah, that's not a happy looking car, and that's the 4th or 5th guy we've seen lose it on the exit of that hairpin. You're so desperate to get the hammer down because that is the longest flat out on the circuit. But that's the price you pay for just being a little bit too trigger happy, as we go back to Matt Laubscher and Lee Aberdeen, who are fighting very hard for that final podium position, although it has allowed Scott Tuffy to get a little bit of breathing space.
Scott Tuffy, who we did not expect necessarily to see, I believe, at the front of the order. I think Scott had started a bit further back outside of the top 5, or at least just in the bottom sections of it. But Scott now having a great race, being able to cruise out ahead of the guys that are following him. Now, Lee Aberdeen still having to defend very incredibly hard from Matt Laubscher here. Matt has kept the pressure on for the entire race so far, and with only 11 laps to go, he's going to be getting desperate soon, thinking, how on earth do I get past that car of Lee Aberdeen ahead of me? The gap now 1.5 seconds, Lee Aberdeen, I believe, then back to Tuffy. So that's really not going to be working in his favour if he wants to make his way up, but perhaps holding on to that podium just for those last 11-10 laps is going to be what Lee is going to be trying to do the most now, trying to maximise that gap to Lubscher behind, which is now 0.5 of a second. That's half a second back. And he'll still be well in contention for a bit of slipstream, bit of toe there, and trying to keep the pressure on as we go over to a replay of Jeff Randall here. What did happen to Jeff? Is this him behind Edmund Webb at the moment?
Yeah, well, there were a couple of incidents further back. So Jeff had a crash, and then I believe Colin Nicol. Oh, I assumed they got involved together because there was quite a lot going on at the same time. But this is Colin Nicol. I believe that's into turn 1, or no, that's the final turn. Oh, and there's just a difference in speed there. I think that's the car in front had got a much more compromised line. Colin slows down for it, and the chap behind him didn't react in time. We've all done that. It's such an unfortunate and frustrating thing to happen, but that's the sort of price you pay with these cars being so fragile. Is that the smallest incident? As we're now live and we see there's been another incident further up the field. It's all kicking off halfway through. We thought it was going to be the first few laps with the spicy time.
Yeah, lots of smoke kicking up from tyre lockups by the looks of it. Here's David Hatton that we're riding with at the moment, car number 32, looking to try and get it past that's Jeff Randall, who obviously we saw have that incident. And there's Jeff off the track, obviously struggling with downforce maybe and getting his turn in right. The damage on that Formula 3 car going to cost him a lot now, apparently, as David Hatton cruises past into P15. He'll be chasing down Stuart Mill next if he can make the time up to that driver. Jeff, I believe, has now towed. He's in the pits. He's going to have to take the fast repair in order to get himself in a position to be racy again. Edmund Webb's made his way up to 10th position. He's got Gavin Petty behind. Gavin, obviously, who we saw have that incident earlier in the race, now trying to claw his way back up into the high point scoring positions within this race. He's in P11 at the moment. There'll be points for participation in that. But he wants to get himself as many as possible to keep himself high up in that league table. Lee Aberdeen still having to keep his eyes on the prize as he defends heavily from Lubscher, who's now closed the gap up to just 0.3 of a second. But we've seen it stretch in and out like a spring throughout this race. So we'll see what Lubscher's able to do now as they come onto the straight. Lee Aberdeen weaving all over the place like Fernando Alonso, trying to break that toe. And the 2/10 now, that gap right up behind Lee Aberdeen. They nearly touch into Tarzan Bach. That is incredible there, the one real overtaking position that we mentioned earlier. And now this next section of the circuit will be incredibly critical to Matt Lubscher, who needs to try and maintain that only 2/10 gap as it just slips a little bit. But will the toe here on the long, windy straights of Zandvoort be able to be, enough for him to gain back that little bit of time in the slipstream? I don't think it's going to be good enough here, is it, Chris? No, he can't get remotely close to the back of Lee Aberdeen down there. Lee just managed to get all the drive he needed out of turn 4, and that was him safe maybe for another half a lap at least. But Matt Lubscher keeping it in that 0.3 range. He doesn't want to let go of the back of Lee's car at all, and we need to stay here with Matt and Lee as they continue this battle. I will say actually that Edmund Webb and Dare Flock, I believe, are possibly in a bit of a fight as well at the moment that might be worth watching. But we'll just kind of hang on here for a second and see what Matt's able to do as we now go outside of the car and have a little look at the angle and just how close these guys really are getting as they head into the last couple of corners now, ready for another lap, bringing us down to 8 laps left to go now on this circuit. Some brilliant driving so far, and here we are back with Dare Flock and that battle that we were talking about just a minute ago, where he is being chased down. He is chasing Mr. Webb ahead of him. So that's Mitchell Webb that's trying to make a bit of distance on Dare Flock. But also behind them, they've got the other Webb who may be looking to pick up on any mistakes that happen or any incidents that happen as a part of this battle.
Yeah, and I think what we saw last lap between Aberdeen and Lubscher, I think that's the first time I've seen Aberdeen in any of the leagues we've run with him. I've not ever seen him actively defend like that and weave to try and break the toe, which just shows you how much he deems Matt Lubscher a threat compared to, say, you or I or the rest of the Radical League crew, which is, Colin Wynne got his first win last week, although that was down to Lee's absence, although Colin did do a spectacular race as well. But it just shows this is an absolute roller coaster of a circuit, as we saw on board last lap, and it looks like Stuart Milne has now got past Patrick Rowland, so let's perhaps see what happened there. And where's that around the outside? Is that turn 1?
That is around turn 1, yeah. He's gone round the outside nice and comfortably there, hasn't he? And then just managed to tuck it in for turns 3 and 4. And a successful move there from Stuart Milne. Some great racing. That's put him back up into P13. Now, as we look at Der Flock, looking for a move up the inside, but wasn't quite able to get it done there on Mitchell Webb. We'll be able to keep an eye on this fight. They're incredibly close. That gap going everywhere between 100th and 100th and 4/10ths almost at some point. So incredibly close between these guys, Der Flock and Mitchell Webb, racing hard for position here, trying to make the most of the points in the top 10, and names that we hadn't seen, I think, anywhere near that end of the grid when we were looking at qualifying earlier. We're going to go over to, who's this here? Matt Lubscher getting the move done on Lee Aberdeen, is it?
Yep, he's managed it on the top. The previous few laps, Laubscher had actually hit the rev limiter, so I'm surprised he's been able to get past Aberdeen there. He must have got a very good exit out of the final turn, because I kind of assumed that Aberdeen had the speed advantage over him.
Well, now that Aberdeen's ahead, now that Aberdeen's behind, and he's going to be chasing and trying to make the most of that slipstream in the same way that Lubscher has been for the last 15 or so laps. As we go, with only 7 left to go, it's going to be down to Aberdeen now to try and close that gap up and make sure that he can put himself back on the podium. But Lubscher already appears to be growing that gap up to half a second now from the 3/10 that it was previously. As we go over to Jerome Lamy, who's down in 5th position at the moment. He's actually going to be the next person that Aberdeen needs to worry about. With there's Sam Hermer having an incident on at the front of the pack. Sam Hermer, he's got some damage on the front wing. That's going to promote Scott Tuffy up to the lead, I believe, at the moment. Is it now, Chris?
I don't think it has. I think that was a lap car, but it has brought the gap down to 2.3 seconds, and he's got that little bit of damage. He lost 7 seconds on the last lap, so he's done very well to create the gap. That means he can have that off and still lead the race. And will Scott Tuffy be aware that Sam Hermer is carrying that little bit of damage? Although such is Hermer's pace advantage around here, he was still 0.2 of a second faster than Tuffy on that last lap, having had a whole clean lap since that incident. Which, I mean, it's just insane how fast Hermer is, really. Because Tuffy, Laubscher, Aberdeen and Lamy are rapid drivers. I mean, even Cockram and Foskett in 6th and 7th, they're not slouches. I mean, Foskett not managing under a 1:30 there, but Cockram has. But again, quick drivers. Everyone in the top 10 has managed a 1:29 at some point. I mean, Gavin Petty in 10th is a 29:07, one of the quickest drivers on the track. So he'll be ruining the fact he had that incident, because he had the pace to challenge these top guys.
Yeah, he's not been able to get himself back up the order quite as much as I think he would have liked to have. He's sat there in 10th still. That's not going to be where he's used to being. With Lee Aberdeen now slipping back a bit further from Matt Lubscher, and just looking at the front two. So Sam Hermer actually continuing to regrow that gap, even with the damaged front wing that I think we saw in that replay. He's now 2.5 seconds ahead of Tuffy, so Tuffy won't be able to close that gap up without a bit of a miracle, I think, with Lubscher now well and truly positioning himself in 3rd, growing that gap even more from Aberdeen, and then Lamy having to try and pick up the pieces, see if he can make his way up to 4th as well. We're going to go over to Scott now as we watch him through not the last lap quite, with 5 to go. But he's looking incredibly strong around here. We haven't seen any incidents really from Scott Tuffy at all as he goes into turn 1 there, nice and clean, and then picking up plenty of curb on the left-hand side, making the most of the track here at Zandvoort. And again, he's not really going to be remotely able to close that gap up, is he, to Hermer ahead, with it growing almost to 3 seconds now between P1 and 2, even with that damage. So that really is testament to Hermer's skill around this track. Lubscher is the one that we're going to be looking out for here. The gap for him a bit more so as well. So will he be able to close it up? Jack Ralph at the moment is one of the closest battles that we've got on track. He's chasing along behind David Hatton with that gap at half a second. Will he be able to make his way up to P15 from 16 after having started in 12th, Mr. Ralph? A shame to have seen a few places lost throughout this race in round 4. Car number 93 chasing hard behind 32 ahead and to turn 1 as we go around Tarzan box. It doesn't really look like he's been able to close it up too much. A couple of tenths in it at the moment, and then we could be in for a move over the course of the next couple of bends. We'll stay with these guys at the moment. Big lock up there from David Hatton ahead. That's going to compromise the exit speed here, I think, because his line just didn't look quite as good as Ralph's. And Ralph looking around the outside there, not quite sure if he's going to be able to do it. Is he going to be brave enough into the corner here? He's going to look to the outside outside, possibly not quite ready to make that move. No, not quite for Jack Ralph. He's going to have to be patient for the moment, see if he can just keep putting the pressure on Hatton ahead of him, and maybe David will end up spinning off at some point, a bit like we're seeing with some of the other drivers. Another lock up there from David Hatton. That's going to give Ralph all of the advantage that he needs to see if he can make a move. He's looking around the outside. Are you seeing as much tyre smoke as I am here, Chris? This looks like David Hatton really under pressure, isn't he?
I think Jack Ralph is going to take note of that. It shows you how hard Hatton is having to push to keep ahead. So you just want to keep your nose there. It's another one, and he's really compromised his exit out of the hairpin here. Is Ralph going to be able to do something into these two right-handers? I think if I were him, I'd focus on getting the best possible exit here to take him on the main straight, because he has definitely got the pace advantage over Hatton, and Hatton's defending very well. They're actually going to go side by side into the last turn.
Ralph's going to go at the inside here. He's looking to the right-hand side for this move, and now he's going to tuck it back in behind him on the pit straight, and now up for the inside for him. He's going to look for a move into turn one. Hatton, we've already seen him locking up a number of times, but there again, a lot of locking up. Oh, we've got a bit of a blink there, and then Ralph just having to sit back. He's not quite been able to make it happen. Car number 93 has to be patient again and line it up for another run at a later point in this lap, but he's only got 4 more chances to do it on the turn one, and more of that tyre smoke coming off of car number 32 ahead. David Hatton obviously really struggling to keep that car ahead at the moment of Jack Ralph. So I believe we might have a bit of a closer gap again, getting at the front as Lee Aberdeen and Jerome Lamy look like they might be getting a little bit close together again. Here we go. Yeah, Jerome Lamy now really pushing hard in these last few laps, trying to make the move on Lee Aberdeen. We've seen Lee lose a place already from 3rd down to 4th when he got overtaken by Matt Lubscher. That gap 7/10, and now he's really going to struggle to probably grow that gap now ahead of him, or get that gap back down to Lubscher, with Lamy putting on the pressure. He's not going to be able to rest at all, is he? 4/10 separating these guys, and we've had the move done now back in the field by Jack Ralph. Jack Ralph on the outside of Mr. Hatton, trying to get it done, and then he's lined up very nicely for the next section of the circuit where he's just managed to get it ahead. Look at this side-by-side racing from these guys. Absolutely fantastic work, and eventually car 32 just having to not quite yield, because it means that Jack Ralph has spun it, and that is an unfortunate incident after a lot of hard work from Ralph in car number 93. As we go back up to our front runners here with Lamy and Aberdeen. This is incredibly close stuff at the moment, Chris, and just shows you that the action really never is over on these F3 races, all the way to the end, with just a handful of minutes left on our side.
Yeah, there's been action throughout the track here, and throughout the pack as well. There's been a lot more action than I thought in terms of places to overtake. That hairpin that we saw Cockram earlier do the overtaking on with the 2 different lines, I really didn't expect to see him do that there because of how low grip it is. So we see Lamy try it around the outside here of Lee Aberdeen, and he's leaving the space for him. Although that's going to be, are they going to go too wide here? That's not a good idea. And Aberdeen's going to keep the hairpin there. Although as we see some tyre smoke from, I assume that will be Laubscher ahead, who is catching right up to Scott Tuffy. He's only got 2 laps to try and get that move done, but the gap is down to 1.2 there, and we know how quick Matt Laubscher is. So if I'm Scott Tuffy, I'm going to have to really try and hold my nerve here, as Aberdeen seems to now have the measure of Lamy for the moment. There's still, again, 2 laps and a bit to go, and they're taking some very different lines here. And is this actually a lapped car?
This is a lapped car, I believe they're trying to get past. Yeah, it is. I'm just trying to work out who it is. I think it might be Graham Nicol.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it looks like they're going to get through nice and cleanly there. Lamy just having to hold a bit more of an inside line, but I think that has possibly just meant that Lamy has managed to keep it nice and close behind Aberdeen. That car not quite out the way in the right place for them, but hasn't affected the racing too much, with Aberdeen using all the track there and Lamy just trying to get his foot down on the power nice and hard if he can. There's only 3/10 separating these guys. It's the closest battle on track, and we're going to have to stick with it for the remainder, I believe, as we're now on the white flag lap we're coming into here. So this is the final lap and the final chance for Jerome Lamy to be able to get ahead. Lee Aberdeen in 4th position, defending for his life, weaving around, trying to break that toe, as we hear Jerome Lamy hitting the rev limiter into turn 1. Is he as tight as Lee Aberdeen there? I think they've said on a similar line, and now Lamy right at the back of Aberdeen. Is he going to be able to make something happen into this last lap? We're going to have to stay on board here with Lamy and see. Oh, there's a big lock up from Aberdeen. He's closed that gap up. Aberdeen having to defend for his life, using all the curves. Aberdeen struggling through this final section of the race. We've already seen him lose one place. Come on, Lee, you can hold on to it, but we also want to see a great overtake here from Lamy, as they are incredibly close into the middle section now of this final lap. Great racing from both these guys, and Lamy doesn't want to take his front wing off the back of Aberdeen's rear wing, does he at all? He's absolutely stuck to the back of him, running round the outside, looking for every gap he can find, trying to open up these corners to get a better run than Aberdeen on the exit. The final lap it's come down to. Aberdeen pushing as hard as he can there, and Lamy, look at that, he's almost at the side of him there. They're going to live side by side. Is the front wheel of that car almost by the side of the rear wheel? It absolutely is, but he can't get close enough as they come into the final section. Now Aberdeen might just have sealed the deal there and managed to hold on to it, but it's not over yet, kids, because Lamy is absolutely all over him, pushing hard all the way to the end. If we now come into the checkered flag, your winner is Sam Hermer, but let's see who's going to come across the line in 4th and 5th. It's Aberdeen versus Lamy. Lamy is hanging on to the back of him there, trying to break the toe, but he's not able to do it. Aberdeen comes home in 4th with Lamy in 5th position. Fantastically close race there from those guys all the way down to the final lap and across the line. Only a 10th in it, I believe, by the end there, Chris. That was incredibly intense from those guys. Great end to Zandvoort.
That could have gone so badly wrong. It just shows you the skill of these drivers. I believe we've got Quiet Sloth in Twitch saying you can tell they're decent. 2 laps from the end and still 20 cars in an F3 race. You won't see that in an official. That's very true. It's such a difficult track, so it just speaks volumes about the skill of these drivers that they've managed to complete this race. I mean, if you look at the gaps as well, like Samuel Hermer, despite that incident, was nearly 30 seconds ahead of James Cockram, who, as you know, like I've said before, he's a very quick driver. Same with Chris Foskett in 7th there. So goodness knows where they find that pace from. As I believe we're just waiting for the last few drivers to come through. Jeff Randall, I think, is limping home. We've also got Leslie Griffin as well, although there seems to be some connection issues for a few of these guys here. So we just follow the last few guys through, and then we'll be able to find the grid. Scott Tuffy managed to hold off Matt Laubscher in the end. Laubscher had quite a bad penultimate lap, so he might have just been pushing that little bit too hard, and this is a track that really punishes you for that. So well done to Scott Tuffy for holding on there. That was a very good result for him, I would say.
Brilliant work from all of these guys. We've seen some real comebacks from some of our drivers, with Gavin Petty making his way back up to 9th after an early spin on lap 1, and a few others obviously in there as well that have made great comebacks. Here are your race results, with Samuel Hermer at the top there, winning 60 points, and then Scott Tuffy behind in 2nd. Matt Lubscher made his way up to 3rd, overtaking Lee Aberdeen in the middle section of the race, and then Lee in 4th, managed to hold off Jerome all the way to the end. It was fantastic racing, really tested the lung capacity there on the last lap, with Jerome coming over in 5th. A great race from both those guys. James Cockram comes in 6th, followed by Chris Foskett, and then we've got Mitchell Webb, Gavin Petty, Dare Flock, Stuart Milne, and Rudy Marai. Then in 13th, Edmund Webb, Patrick Rowlands, Jack Ralph, David Hatton, Ryan Annals, Leslie Griffin, Jeff Randall, Graham Nicol, and Colin Nicol in 21st. So some great racing there from the pack. As you said, 20-odd drivers still in the mix. We've had some fantastic battles this evening, and Patrick Rowlands, your namesake, coming in 14th. Great performance from Patrick on the debut, so great to see that. And obviously the highlight for me there, really, Chris, was that last lap battle. Really was something to behold, wasn't it, between those guys who were they really both wanted that P4 finish at the end there.
Yeah, they did really well there. That wasn't even for a podium position, and like you see, like a 10th and a half separating them, and that's the most we've seen Lee Aberdeen have to defend in ages. I'm sure Jerome as well will be happy that for once he's not had something catastrophic happen on the last couple of laps, because he's had some absolutely awful luck in our league races this season. I mean, I think back to Watkins Glen, where he was fighting for the win and then ran out of fuel with 2 laps to go. And in the previous season as well, where he's had incidents going into the pit lane. It's nice that he's finally having a strong result. It just shows you the strength of the field here, that we've got drivers like Stuart Milne outside of the top 10. I know he's had his incident, but it just shows you how difficult it is for these guys to keep near the top of the field. As Sam Hermer, I believe, will have extended his lead in the standings. I've not been able to get the standings to work on SDK, so we're just going to have to take my word for it, basically.
I think looking at the standings as they were before, Stuart was ahead on 190 points. So in theory, we've got to have him on about 250 by this point, surely. So that's a big points jump. Stuart Milne was P2 in the standings, and James Cochran was P3. So plenty of drivers that'll be shifting around the order here. We'll see what those look like. We'll post those, make them available to the Discord. So I guess all that's left really is just to wrap up for the evening here on the Formula 3. Thank you very much to obviously to all of our drivers out on track this evening for providing us with the great racing and entertainment that you've been able to see. All the viewers there on Twitch and YouTube, thank you for tuning in, giving us a like and a subscribe. Very much appreciated for the channel. Thank you, Chris, to yourself for being there to do the cameras for us this evening. I will obviously be a bit of a fill-in on the commentary and help us out with your extensive knowledge of the Formula 3 vehicle. So we'll be looking forward, obviously, to seeing you all on the next races. We're going to be at the Red Bull Ring on the 24th of August, and then following on from that, we'll have the final round at Silverstone on September the 7th, I believe. So other upcoming races that we've got, the Porsche Cup will be at Long Beach this weekend. That's on Sunday night. Then you will also have the GT3s on at Interlagos on the week of 22nd of August. So that's the following Sunday from that. Join us this week if you're in the community and you want an invite for the Radicals League. That's Thursday the 12th. We'll be at Sebring. If you want to get involved with the racing, head over to the Facebook page where you can get us. It's www.facebook.com/iRacing UK. You can also get us over on Twitter and Instagram at IRUK_team. I'm Nick Allen, and I've been joined by Chris Rowlands for a fantastic evening of racing here at Zandvoort. And from us, it's good night and goodbye.